What is up, my dudes? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new here. If you're new here, I'm Ellie, and today is gonna be more of a serious video. I'm going to be talking about the thing that is literally sweeping the globe right now, not in a trend sense, but it is the Black Lives Matter cause. I didn't upload last Sunday, which was the 7th of June, because I hadn't filmed this video yet and I wanted to make sure all my facts were right, because I don't want to be spreading misinformation or anything like that. And if I do have anything wrong, please politely correct me in the comments. I did try and check everything, so know that I try my best with this, but I am here to spread some awareness and show my support, really. If this just isn't your video, your vibe, I have loads of useful links in the description, so check them out, even if you hate the sound of my voice and you can't stand me or whatever. I would just like to say I am being vocal mainly on my Instagram and my Twitter. That's the best way I feel I personally can spread the message. This is gonna probably be the only time I'm gonna talk about this in a full video on here, to be honest. I am being vocal on my Instagram and Twitter. I have links for them in the description to follow them, not to gain followers, but in case you want more resources, I have a hashtag Black Lives Matter highlight on my Instagram with loads of different posts. I will obviously support this cause all the way, but I am sort of gonna keep my YouTube more as a mental escape, not only for myself but for other people, since the UK is still technically on lockdown. Yeah, it's still very mentally challenging. There's not much freedom at all, whereas I know in most places in the States and even in some places in Europe it's pretty much back to normal now. My channel is mental escape for me and probably for a lot of other people, and I do want it to stay that way, so I'm going to address this and I'm going to support it all the way, but I will be addressing it more on my Instagram and my Twitter. So if you want to stay updated, I post lots of petitions on my Twitter and links to them, so follow that for them. So in this video I'm going to be talking about racism mainly in the UK, since I have not seen much about that. I think I've seen like 2 Instagram posts maybe about the UK, maybe 3 because of that statue that got pulled down, and also things you can do to support the Black Lives Matter cause. I feel like our history lessons are completely whitewashed. It is ridiculous. For example, Winston Churchill, you may think he saved so many people, he was such a great guy. He was actually a huge racist. I literally learned that the day I am filming this, and that is just one thing we don't know. So there is this movement called the Black Curriculum. Go check them out. Their Instagram will probably be linked below, and if I can't link that, then I'll link like a webpage or something if I can find it. If not, then I'll just put their handle there. They are trying to get more Black history into the curriculum. I did history GCSE and I didn't even know that Churchill, who was a major part of the course, was a huge racist. That blows my mind. We hugely benefited as a country from the slave trade, not particularly owning slaves but trading in them. Until 2015, so 182 years, the government, taxpayers, had been paying off a £2 million debt to slave owners, and I presume it went on to their family because nobody's 182 years old to live for that all to be paid off, to reimburse them for a loss of property when slavery was abolished. I am disgusted that we were even paying them, that they lost their property. It's not property, it's a human being who you effectively stole from a different country against their own will and, well, yeah, forced them into slavery. And then we were paying that off until 2015. That's probably like, how many generations is that? People lived to like, what, 70? That's like 4, 5, maybe 3 to 5 generations benefiting. 182 years after it was abolished, people were still benefiting from it and being paid, not just like living off of what they got, like being paid for it. It's just so wrong. And this isn't a political matter, it's just basic human rights and treatment. Okay, I have notes here. If I'm looking down, that's what it is, because I don't want to miss anything. Okay, just to put it into perspective, I know there are lots of names that you probably know of people in the US especially, I can't speak, that have been subject to racism and very sadly and tragically murdered. For example, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, murdered in her own home. The police didn't announce their arrival, which they legally have to do. They'd already arrested the person who they were supposedly trying to find and arrest, and then they shot her. I don't think there are many things that are much more tragic and horrific than that. So to give some examples of that and raise awareness and hopefully get justice for some people, I think most of the people I'm going to read out have change.org petitions to like arrest the people and put them on trial who did murder them, because that's just what needs to happen, let's be honest. First person is Adrian McDonald. There is speculation around the involvement of drugs in his death. I'm not going to go too much into that, but he was arrested for drugs, supposedly, for taking drugs. But it's the effect the drugs had on him and then the lack of response from the police officers. He was bitten by a police dog and tasered while they were arresting him, and then he died at the scene in the police van due to cardiac arrest because he had done drugs and the stress. I think the stress of it killed him, but he had been complaining of breathing difficulties, and when the officers arrested him, they told him to calm down because he was breathing really heavily because he couldn't breathe properly because he was on drugs or whatever. And I'm obviously not agreeing with taking drugs, that's obviously not good. I'm talking about like illegal drugs, not like medical. And in the back of the police van, he became unconscious. Complete neglect of his well-being. He just died. They just let him die, basically. Even when he told them he couldn't breathe and he was breathing heavily, so he was visibly struggling, they did nothing. He didn't get taken to hospital, I don't believe. Just, there was a complete neglect by the officers. They didn't do anything. What we need is the police to be held accountable to make sure that they're actually taking care of. Yes, he'd done something wrong, which was taking drugs, but he shouldn't die for that. I don't think you should die for anything illegal. The death penalty is just flawed. It's like two wrongs don't make a right, you know? Another example is Nunu Cardoso. He died in custody. He was arrested on suspicion of possession of a knife. So they beat him quite brutally and he ended up dying from that after being struck by a police baton. This one is probably the worst, honestly, out of these three, because it's just so horrific. And oh, okay. Olisani Lewis. He admitted himself to hospital for mental health care, and when he became agitated, the staff called the police because, I don't know, they felt threatened or something, which I'm not objecting to that. Obviously, if you need more support, then that's fine. But 11 policemen restrained him with such force that they starved his brain of oxygen, so he died. This one is hard for me because he admitted himself to go to hospital. He admitted himself for help with his mental health, and then when his mental health started to suffer there, they called the police, and then the police, who were meant to protect everyone, they killed him when he wanted help and he'd gone to get help. Which in itself, going to get help for your mental health is a huge thing. And, you know, that's a big step and it can make such a difference if it's done right. But he ended up dying because he'd admitted himself into hospital for help. I will never know what it's like, and I really struggle with that because I'm like, what if I say something wrong or I say something that's offensive and I don't realise it? And it's such a privilege that I get to educate myself on racism and not experience it. And I haven't seen much, if any, racism in my life because I just don't live in a very diverse area. I don't know why particularly, it's just not massively diverse. My general point though is that British police, while they may seem better than American police just because they don't have guns on all of them all the time, they're not that much better. There's still so much systemic racism here, and it's horrific, and people lose their lives just because of the colour of their skin. They didn't necessarily even do something bad. They didn't necessarily even break a law in the first place, and they die for it. For something they can't control, which is the colour of their skin. I'm now going to talk about some things that you can do to help. I will have loads of links below for things you can do. So you can, obviously, you can sign petitions. So there was a petition to get the Derek Chauvin, sorry if that's pronounced wrong, who was the actual murderer of George Floyd, to be arrested. That one worked, he was arrested. And then there was a different one to have all the other 3 officers who stood by and watched him die and did nothing about it. Those 3 officers to be arrested. That one also made an impact. They were arrested. They're all on trial. I'm not sure what for exactly. You've probably seen it going around Instagram. It's blacklivesmatters.card with 2 R's.co. They have loads of resources. So they have links to petitions, links to different places you can donate. I think protests, they have a Canada section and I think a New Zealand one as well. They are a really great resource basically. And obviously if you can't afford to donate any money, then you can always watch Zoe Amira's video, which is lots of black creators and like musicians and artists and stuff. All of the AdSense goes to different charities, I think, for the Black Lives Matter cause basically. So if you watch that and you watch the ads all the way through, it will generate more revenue than if you skip them. So don't skip them, watch it. I think it's like an hour or so. So if you watch that and don't skip the ads, no matter how long they are, it'll generate way more revenue, and then that is more money to a good cause. And then when you're done, just watch it again, okay? The second one is just be the change you want to see. If you want to end racism, it's not enough to not be racist. You have to be anti-racist. So if you're at a family dinner, for example, and one of your grandparents say something and you're like, that's a little bit dodgy, that's slightly racist. You can't just sit back and make excuses for them being like, oh, they're just old and like things were different when they were younger, because nothing was different for the black people being oppressed. People were still being oppressed, and you can't just sit by and not say anything, at least not without having a guilty conscience about it. Challenge them and say, why would you say that? And then pick out their response, and if they're like, oh, well, it's just a joke, that's not acceptable either. And if you have to lose friends over this, do. If one of your friends are like, I don't get it, why should we feel ashamed as white people? Because we didn't do that. That was our ancestors that had slaves. Yes, but the effects are still felt today, and nobody's been doing much about it up until now. We should feel guilty about that. Up until about 3 weeks ago, people were still being killed for this. People are now. People are still being killed at protests for the colour of their skin. People are being attacked for the colour of their skin, being unfairly arrested for the colour of their skin. It has to end. If they maybe lose all their friends, they might just realise how deeply flawed their behaviour is. If you cannot get through to them, just cut them off. If you can't explain it logically and say, well, it doesn't make any sense, no, we're not any different. And the goal isn't to not see colour, the goal is to see your colour and respect you and learn about how your struggles are different. So yeah, if you have to have a difficult conversation with someone, have it and be strong. And if you need, show them videos and different news articles and stuff, whatever it is to get through to them. Another thing you can do is go to protests. Obviously, not super safe in the UK right now, but if you're gonna do it, at least wear a mask, and then if you can, social distance, please. I'm not saying don't go to protests, but if you live with someone that is shielding, show your support in some other way. You don't have to do every single thing. You don't have to listen to podcasts and read books and post on Instagram and make videos about it, and go to protest. Everybody's different job is important, and we all have to keep doing what we're doing, because either way it's going to make an impact. Another thing you can do is support black-owned businesses. There's a website where you can search for either products or like categories, and it will bring up a black-owned business that does that thing near you. There's Uoma Beauty, which you can get on like Cult Beauty, and the other one that's like that, but I could never remember the name. Essentials by Temi, these will all be linked below. Briogio. I have no idea how to say that, I am so sorry. Lila Beauty and Ricatect. Again, I'm not sure how to say that, but that is an Etsy store actually. That is a really great way to support the black community as well, because they have been hard to hit by the coronavirus. The final thing is just educate yourself. If you haven't lived it, educate yourself, because so many other people have lived it. You can read books, watch films, documentaries, keep up with the news, okay? Listen to podcasts, as I've said. There's loads of good resources linked in the Black Lives Matters card website. So yes, the final thing I want to cover is why it's not all lives matter. Obviously, all lives matter. Everybody matters. It goes without saying that everyone's life matters, but the black community are struggling so much at the moment. If one house is burning down, you don't send firefighters to the whole street. If one house is burning, you send it to that one house, because they're the ones who need it. So just saying all lives matter detracts from the Black Lives Matter movement, makes it seem inferior, invalidates it. Obviously everybody's life matters, and that is why we're fighting for Black Lives Matter, because theirs are being taken away at a much greater rate than white people or other races, you know? I hope this video has reached someone who maybe hasn't seen me before, hasn't heard about the movement, or didn't really know how to make a difference. Hopefully you know now. Subscribe for my usual more upbeat content, because I will be going back to that. Obviously I will keep fighting for this, but I do, as I said, want my channel to be a mental escape, not just for myself but for everyone else, because of the huge impact that coronavirus, and seeing videos of people just being shot by police and attacked, and it's all very violent at the moment. So if you need an escape, this is come back here and hit subscribe and the bell so you don't miss any more of my videos. I am not trying to benefit from this cause in that sense. I am genuinely saying, if you need a mental break from something, my channel will always be here, okay? And my final thing is, thank you for 1,000 subscribers. That's crazy. And I will see you either in a week or 4 days. So, love you guys. Bye.